Hello, and welcome back to the Games Institute podcast. I'm your host, Marisa Benjamin,
And I'm your co-host, Tobin Rossico.
and today we are joined by the very special guest, John Muñoz. But please, introduce yourself because you have three surnames.
Yeah, well, nice meeting you. Thank you guys for inviting me. My name is John Muñoz. I've done my PhD in human computer interaction. So that's why when I arrived to Waterloo, I was feeling that the Games Institute was like the perfect place for me to start working and building the networking and just have a nice place also to play games. So I love playing games. Having also recently discovered my passion in designing games. So during my PhD, I worked with serious games applied for health. And I started basically designing games with a lot of different people with different backgrounds, especially collaborating with healthcare professionals, physical therapists, um, psychologists, recreational therapists, people in occupational therapies. And what I have been doing is basically trying to, design games that can be used in specific healthcare scenarios. So this is my second year. Yeah, I'm finishing now my second year as a postdoctoral fellow here at the university. I'm working with different laboratories. And later in this interview, we'll tell you one of the best surprises that I found here in Waterloo that got me really excited about the things that I'm doing, something that I was not expecting to find. And it has been very, very surprising.
Well, that's awesome. We're going to get to so much today. We're going to talk about your VR Exergames. We're going to talk about, I have down here the shorthand, like social robotics. We're going to talk about industry collaborations. There's so much. So we're very grateful that you're able to join us. Before we dive into all of that cool stuff, we do have to ask you one very important question. Tobin, you want to fire that over?
Yeah, so we are always interested in how our guests get started in games and their interest in games. So for you, what is your earliest childhood memory of games? And this can be sports, video games, board games, card games, anything like that.
That's actually funny because the first assignment that I got in my game design course was basically to build a library in which I had to remember from when I was 6 or 7, which were the games that I was playing every year. And we have to list like 4 to 5 games per year, the ones that we remember. The first games that I ever remember are, of course, outdoor games. And when I was digging a little bit more into that, I discovered some literature about outdoor games back in my country, Colombia. So we have like kind of like adaptations of baseball, which you basically use like a piece of wooden stick, and then any rounded thing similar to a ball, and then we kind of like create our own court on the street. So regular streets that are closed, and then I just remember that we were piling stones. So you have to pile the stones. And then every time that you were kind of like hitting the ball, you're trying to like hit that pile of stones. And every time you do that, then you have to run through different bases. So I have a lot of memories of outdoor games, and I started like discovering that I still feel like a lot of good nostalgia when I try to remember those games. There's another one that is super popular that sometimes I play here with my Latino American friends, and apparently it's something that's super spread out. You have to kind of like draw small squares. I mean, I can be sure that it's also very popular, or it has been probably popular somewhere here in North America. You draw some squares with numbers on the floor, and then you take a small piece of or like a small stone, and then you throw it, and then you get basically the squares are in a certain way that they can be 2 or 1, and then you have to jump 2, and then with 1 leg in the other one and 2 legs, and then you grab the stone and then you come back. So these are kind of like the games that I remember from my childhood. That again, every time that I remember them, they make me pretty nostalgic.
I think my mom played something similar to the second game that you mentioned when she was a kid, and she taught it to us when we were kids too. But she grew up in Italy, so I don't know if it would be the same. Maybe some variation.
Yeah, it sounds like a variation of hopscotch because I saw that in the Dominican Republic too. I saw kids doing that.
I can be sure. That's something that it's quite popular here and there.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about how games travel, because you have like schoolyard games and people know about it from various parts of the world, and it's always a little bit different. So that's really interesting. Yeah.
I found always fascinating how actually every culture is kind of like transforming a kind of like really basic game mechanic, and then everyone is like adapting it to different stories, or they just remove or put like some extra, I don't know, aesthetics or some different technologies that they have available, and they just kind of like create the essentially the same game, by a sense, but then it's just kind of like masked with other very very particular things that are like specific from each culture.
Do you remember any stories associated with the games you mentioned?
I think at some point I was also here like going for a hike, and I was with two Canadian friends that I recently made. One is from the French side, and the other one is more from Ontario. So when we were just hiking, at some point we stopped, and then I started making I took a piece of wood, I started making the squares. And when I tried to explain to them the game, it was for them like supernatural. It's, we got a very similar game, although we have, and they were explaining me like the differences and everything. And it was for us supernatural to play that game. So I didn't even have to like explain what was the game about, which were the rules. It was just like very, very natural. So it was super interesting to me to see also that these games, as you were mentioning before, they travel all over the world, and again, they're super intuitive to play.
Yeah, very cool. Let's talk a little bit more about where you have been and how you got to where you are now, your academic biography. So what school did you go to for your undergrad? How did you progress to now where you are as a postdoc?
Yeah, I did all my career undergrad and master back in Colombia, and I did something that is certainly completely different from what I'm doing right now. I did physics engineering. I was working a lot with physics and tools and apparatuses to measure different physics phenomena. And back in my country, I think one thing that I was always feeling that I was super enthusiastic and tied about the games culture in general. So I was always the game supplier dealer in my school. I still remember my friends were always, chasing me to provide them, the video games for the computers and helping them out through how to play specific games. And I was introducing them, super popular games like Age of Empires, Counter-Strike, Halo, and all this. And we spent like very decent amount of hours playing those games at the university. So when I finished, I decided to take a specific branch of my career that was more in the biomedical side, so more in the biophysics. So I started studying the electrical signals in our body. So we started, checking different instruments that you can use to record how people are reacting physiologically when they are doing, many different things. So I did some research in try to create it's called a magnetic stimulator. So how do you create a stimulation using magnetic fields? They were supposed to help you in repeating, or when people go through a leisure, and then they have like some troubles with the bones or the cartilage to be repaired. So I started working a little bit with this biomedical instrumentation. I did my master on that, and I think during my master I just spent a very decent amount of time working with something that is called brain-computer interface. So how to interface our body and our brain by using, in this case, physiological signals, specifically electrophysiological. So we put some electrodes. We were working a lot with wearable devices. And I think at that point, one of the best things that I decided to do with this type of signals was joining my passion for playing games with the type of research that I was doing. So what I was doing basically, do you guys remember the Duck Hunt game, Nintendo? I have a lot of good memories. That was probably the only video game that I managed to play with my dad. My dad just loved that game, and I still remember him trying to kind of like shoot different times to the duck. That was always super annoying. And I took that game and I connected that through a wearable brain computer interface. So every time that a person was basically thinking on moving the right hand, they were able to activate the right hand that was shooting the ducks that were flying. Same thing with
That's so
the
cool.
left hand. So I still have a video of that on my website, and that was super fun. And I basically did that as a way to provide more engagement to a type of therapy that is called neurofeedback, and specifically it's called motor imagery. In motor imagery, people with motor impairments and disabilities, they have to basically imagine their movements. So only imagine. So you don't have to, perform their movement. And it turns out that imagination, it helps in the reaccommodation of certain areas of your brain that have been affected for different types of accidents, like stroke, people with Parkinson, or people with very different neurological disabilities. It can help you in reaccommodate a little bit those paths. The phenomenon is called neuroplasticity. So I met with some clinicians, and they found that type of implementation like super interesting and super fun. And they gave me a space in their clinic to basically not only bring this type of games, but also a lot of games similar to the Wii and the Kinect that we were developing. So the clinician was super excited with that, and we were super excited about having our own room space in the rehabilitation center to run games that can not only provide benefits in terms of engagement, but also any type of healthcare benefits during the therapies. So we were like 3 years designing games with the therapists, and it was super, I don't know, that was super fun, super natural, the interaction. We were just there prototyping, and the therapists were coming and they were saying, oh, maybe you just change this, and this. We have a lot of people helping us in developing the games. And they were switching. Basically, they were coming to the rehab center 1 hour. They were doing 30 minutes of like conventional, you see them, the treadmills and working with the balls. And then suddenly they were like, yeah, and then we have this room also. If you want to spend 30 minutes here playing, we believe these games are also beneficial to the type of rehabilitation you're doing. And people were super, super, engaged with the games. And sometimes even people that are normally coming with the partners or coming with family members, that they basically have just to wait. They just sit down for 1 hour waiting for the person to complete the rehab. A lot of times it happens that the partners were joining to the games that we were creating, and only that combination was like super fun and like super important, considering what the therapists were mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question about how you got into game design. Was that through your schooling? Like, were there courses that you took, or just because of your passion for games, was that something that you went to and said, hey, I want to do this myself?
Yes, I think at that time, before leaving my country, I didn't have any type of formal course in game design. So it was just kind of like passion by, I would say, deconstructing the sensors from the game. So I was kind of like hacking a little bit them, not like super complex hacking, but sometimes we really have to go through the software. For instance, at the moment that the Kinect was released, it was not like support from Microsoft to allow us to, go and access all the things. I still remember I was also doing some experiments when I have like lights and LEDs and a lot of like different things too, in trying to get the information from the Wiimote, because the Wiimote, it has like a set of LEDs that you have to set up in order to be able to get the information from the controller. So I was also like going around that. So I didn't have that formal course on that, but I just have a lot of passion on trying to again deconstruct whatever we were seeing in the gaming sensors and trying to use them with this specific purpose. So
that's cool. And you would also, I guess, I didn't think of this before, but you would be messing with both the software to create the games and then the hardware to make those tools work the way that you need them to in those situations. That's really cool.
I was super enthusiastic about the signals that were coming from the sensors and stuff like that. But yeah, at some point, in order to make the cohesive interfaces for these type of applications, we really need to also go self-software. So we found Unity has a very useful tool for that, and we had courses of programming in real time and C# in physics engineering. So it was like a perfect match.
Okay, cool. So there's a good enough jump start through your schooling that you could jump over and be somewhat comfortable in it. That's really awesome. Cool.
What drew you to come to Waterloo after you were done your PhD?
Well, we are a little bit skipping the part of the PhD, which
sorry.
Super nice. So
my brain went, surely that couldn't have all been his master's. That's way too much. But oh my goodness, talk about your PhD.
Yeah, I think after that experience, I really wanted to pursue my PhD. I was feeling like my design part was missing. So I was like very engineering, very like, the signals, the sensors and everything, but the design part was somewhere missing. So I found this school in Portugal, small island called Madeira. That's the island of Cristiano Ronaldo, super good wine, subtropical weather. So it was not super hard for me to getting convinced to spend 4 years
That's not too bad.
in that place. And when I got the interview, to be honest, I was feeling like, this is a perfect match. So they were doing it's a neuro rehabilitation laboratory doing serious games, in which they were playing a lot with all these devices, and they were creating games for many different purposes. So I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know Portuguese at all. But I was super enthusiastic to do my PhD there. It turns out that at the end, the PhD was kind of like a sheer program with the Carnegie Mellon University. So that's why they had like this really good symbiosis with the human-computer interaction field. And it was like a super nice place for a lot of master students that they were having in I think it's in human-computer interaction master in Carnegie Mellon. They were coming, a lot of masters were coming every year. So that interaction with those folks, I think that was super good to me in terms of like getting more into the design process. I also had, of course, a formal course of game design, which was also, based on a lot of the courses and the material that they also teach at Carnegie Mellon. There's one game designer that's super famous and is probably one of the most the strongest influence that I have in game design. Is called Jesse Schell. And Jesse Schell, he runs a studio in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, called Schell Games. And yeah, he has made like a lot of like very interesting books, and he has like a nice book that covers also some, they call it lenses, which are cards. Those cards are bringing tips on how to balance the game that you're creating. So I got like super, fascinated for that specific approach in game design. And when I took the course was probably the most influential course that I've attended before. And that's why after that course, I defined myself as a game designer, just because I noticed that I had all the elements. I just needed a little bit of a structure on that. So yeah, the island gave me, in that program in human-computer interaction, gave me all the design aspects that I think were missing. And after that, and after finishing my PhD, I started applying for different postdoctoral positions. So I wanted to continue my research on it. And when I had, again, the interview here was with Professor Jennifer Bogan, System Design Engineering, Professor Serkau as well. And they were just, at the moment that they have an initial game using virtual reality created for people living with dementia. And they were looking to somebody to basically lead and to facilitate the design process and to work together with physiotherapists, recreational therapists, and older adults, which was certainly something very similar to what I was doing during my PhD. So yeah, I think it was a perfect match, and they were waiting for me like, wow, it was like 8 months, almost 1 year before I arrived. So I think they were convinced that my profile was the one that they were needing.
That's amazing. What an incredible journey you've had. And I'm sure the fact that Waterloo is such an alluring city, being by the ocean and having all of our fresh wine as well, that helped.
I think that was that was one of the changes that was a little bit more difficult to accept, to embrace after coming from a tropical and subtropical experiences. But I think I found the academic excellence and the diversity that I didn't find in the island. So the island was a small institute. We were like around 100 researchers in that institute, so it's not that huge. And the island was 300,000 inhabitants, so it was not like a super crowded place and diverse in that sense. So I think that was something that pushed for my final decision coming to Waterloo. Like I really need more academic diversity on it.
I mean, that's actually a really compelling thing that University of Waterloo should consider integrating into their advertising. We don't have a beach, but we have a lot of academic diversity and excellence. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, thank you for taking us through all of that. I feel we're already so far into this. It's the time. We have to go deep dive into this VR Exergames. So actually, Tobin, I don't know if you've met with John before. John and I have worked together on developing like communication surrounding his stuff because there's so much exciting milestones that he's hitting. Yeah. So I've written like several press releases. So maybe I think it would be fun if I let you lead the questions about his VR Exergames, since you're coming into it with fresh eyes, fresh thoughts.
Yeah. So I guess to begin, what are the VR Exergames and how do they work?
Yeah, well, I think when I arrived, it was a really nice moment for virtual reality. So virtual reality was really emerging back in 2018. There was a lot of development in devices and hardware. So the main idea that they had is, okay, how we can use this very immersive technology, simulation technology, in a population that is not really, friendly or aware with games or video games overall. I would say video games overall because a lot of them they know how to play, board games or card games. They really enjoy that. But with the video games, they don't necessarily have a lot of literacy. Plus, if you see the specific population, people living with dementia, sometimes they have troubles with memory, which is an extra challenge from a design perspective. Because if you are designing a game, you certainly you try to design challenges that can be learned or that can be easily, progress from one session to the other. Sometimes these people, when they even though you run different sessions, for them it's going to be the first session all the time. So this is, I will say, one of the very special challenges in working with this population is how do you do a game that is always, surprise, that is always engaging, but at the same time is, you can certainly progress in the different sessions you have. So yeah, we started doing a lot of co-design sessions, collaborative design sessions. We joined with a team from applied health science, professors and kinesiologists, and PhD students. They were super excited about doing the project, but they didn't have necessarily the background on how to design games or how this type of games work or how you can evaluate the efficiency or effectiveness of these games. So we started also, one of the goals that I had when I arrived here was, okay, how can we also leave the conventional cycle of the development of the serious games from a research perspective? And I will explain you what is a regular cycle. You're right, as a student, you have some funding to develop those games. So if you are not familiar with the game engine, you have to start learning the game engine, and you really start collaborating with people and developing the games step by step. Then you go and evaluate them, and you show a statistical significance and publications that the games work. But unfortunately, the follow-up on these games is very limited. That means after you show they work, after you show all the potential, people that are really needing them, they don't have access. Or at the end it's a research prototype. So for the setup that, for instance, I was working with back in Portugal, you need basically a projector. then a tripod for the projector that was projecting on the floor. You need a Kinect sensor, you need a computer, you need some sensors to connect and strap, and you cannot pretend that a person at home is going to grab all this equipment and is going to run the game. You also need a calibration, and that was, super techy. So one of the purposes here was, you really need an industry partner. We really need somebody that can take this technology a little bit further. So the first thing that I did when I arrived to Persons, for the first night, I think I was Googling companies in Toronto that were like more or less in the scope of creating these type of games. And I started knocking them by myself, I work with this and this and these professors at the university, but it's just like, I've worked with this. I think I have a good project here with the people at the University of Waterloo. If you are interested, what if I go and visit you? So I was lucky enough to find a very good company, a young company called VR Vision, and they were just starting, with the development of virtual reality games for healthcare and well-being. So we met and we started, I would say, a journey of paperwork, setting up everything you need to collaborate with industry when you are in the university. So they help us in kind of like building, and they were super keen on coming to the brainstorming sessions. I think Marisa was also documenting some of the brainstorming sessions we were doing there. And that was super good to see in the same kind of like team for ideation. So one physical therapist coming from one of the long-term care facilities we collaborate with, students here at the University of Waterloo, master PhD students, different backgrounds, and the CEO of the company or the lead game development of the company. So we split teams and we started I think was trying to create a sense of belonging on that project. So I think in a sense what we are trying to do is to use this very new techie emerging technology in a population that is not really necessarily familiar, or they normally do not have, I would say, early access to this technology. So at the moment that they will have, access to it is maybe at, the moment that where VR is not emerging, not an emerging technology anymore. So part of what we are trying to do is to flip a little bit the paradigm and allowing these people to have access to it. And we have found very nice responses from this population to, the fact of being immersed in a different environment, the fact to work with this technology that for them is just, an extra element or tool that they have to spend their time that they normally have a lot. So they don't have a lot of time to spend. They just would like to spend in different experiences. So from my experience also working with this population, they're super keen and they are super enthusiastic. And even some of them, they spend hours reading about different technologies, and you can be really surprised on how aware sometimes people living in long-term care facilities are about this technology, and the type of concept and construct that they have about it is also fascinating.
So what do the apparatuses look like now? Because you were talking about, the projectors and all that kind of stuff. And I remember the first time I used VR, it kind of felt like I was in some kind of strange experiment and, all these things strapped to you. So what does it look like now to use it? And then what do the games look like that they're playing with this stuff?
Well, I actually would like to briefly show you. I mean, I know people are not going to be, but I'm going to try to be very descriptive. It's also very interesting right now because I think the technology was never this ready before.
Yeah, it's had huge leaps.
In the following, I think, month or two, we're going to be sending this to the participants. In this case, we're going to be working with older adults, community willing older adults. They will receive a case. They will have a booklet we are preparing with a lot of different facts and designs and things like that. So what they are going to have is a case like this one.
Okay, cool.
That is going to have state-of-the-art virtual reality headset. It's going to have a silicone cover that is going to allow them to basically clean the headset after sweating. They have this small thing, which is a good thing for adapting people with glasses. So it's it generates kind of space between the headset and the glasses, yeah, a little buffer, and then controllers and batteries and chargers.
Okay.
The system is already ported, so they kind of like they only have to set up the headset. We got an Elite strap for that, so we noticed that the regular strap was not super comfortable, so we got something that they just adjust from the back.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's pretty simple, and once they are inside, they can select the game that we have created, which is going to transport them to the tropics. So we have created
the best kind of rehabilitation.
Yeah, we have created an experience that is basically the landscape. You are right in front of a huge sea lake, and the first thing you have to do is starting with the warm-up activity. You will have to do Tai Chi in front of the beach.
Oh, nice.
So you have all of this scenario, a lot of birds coming around. There's a dog. There's like small houses here and there, and then you just have there's a leaf floating in the air. You just have to use your hands to basically keep the leaf floating, and then you will have like a path to follow. First with one hand, second with the second hand, and then with both hands. This is a little bit of like warm-up activities for them. Of course, they have feedback. They have. We were trying to bring some elements of storytelling into the environment because we noticed they respond pretty well to voice commands. So, and this is partially because the therapists are constantly, guiding them through the exercise. At the end, this is, something that is complementary to the physical activity. So what we did, one of the PhD students that was has been working with us from Applied Health Science, Samira, she had experience in physical therapy. So we were recording her voice using the fancy microphones we have at the GI. She was basically, kind of like helping them out through navigate in the environment. So she was recording a specific prompts like, here we are, welcome to the tropics. Now we are going to start with Tai Chi, and we were providing a lot of those clips, throughout the experience. First for me, Tai Chi. Then we move a little bit towards something that is more intense from a physical activity perspective, and we place them on a virtual boat, pair of oars, and then they just have to go and row. There is a dolphin. That was actually an idea of one of the physiotherapists we were working with, and the dolphin is basically going to guide you through the world. So you have to follow the dolphin, and the dolphin is certainly scripted to change or modify his speed and behavior based on what we want to achieve, which is certain levels of physical activity, certain intensities of physical activity. So when people are a little bit slow, the dolphin will increase the speed, and then you will try to follow. So we're trying to create a little bit of persuasive dolphin character there for the participants. We play some cows, we play some rabbits, and we play different animals. There is a waterfall coming in the virtual environment, so they are all able to navigate that environment. They even have a swamp with a lot of mosquitoes to make it more Canada friendly when it comes to lakes and things like that in summer. And then at the end, they are placed in a specific spot of the lake or the environment in which they have to fish. So they can use a virtual road, to basically try to get some. I think the fishes are truths, so we're trying to get them to fish. The entire experience lasts 15 minutes, and is what is supposed to, is what is recommended for this population in terms of using also the virtual reality headset. At the end of the experience, what we are hoping is to elicit certain amount of physical activity. We hope to get them through moderate physical activity, which is not as light as just warming up, but it is not as intense as just going for jogging or running. So it's moderate that in a certain way that can produce benefits. And we are just about to start the trail with the community, the willing older adults.
That's super cool. I love how thorough it is and the different stages and the environments and stuff like that. That's really, really awesome.
Well, I'm just summarizing like 2 years of work
yeah.
with the company and all the physios, and just navigated through COVID for these type of applications has been really, really challenging. Even now, this study that I'm mentioning, it went through, all the studies that we have been applying for ethics approval, they all went through a little bit more simplified stream, which it doesn't require all the full ethics board to get approved or to review. Now it's the entire ethics board, because it's something that we're facing these stages of the COVID. It went through all of this. We are positive about the response, but we know the complexity of this type of research these days.
That's awesome. And I love when you showed off the kit, how it's kind of an all-in-one. And I think that demonstrates how advanced this technology has become, where we don't need all the extra sensors and stuff like that. So it's cool that at this time, it's at the point where, you can just buy everything in one nice not Ziploc, but like zippered case. And boom, you got everything.
Are you getting ideas?
Yeah, we're actually calling this the VR at home kit. And the kid is going to bring this case and just a small manual, because we understand there are some older adults that they prefer printed material. And we will bring this thing to them, and there's going to be always a person trying to stay in contact. And we hope then manage to complete that. We have created a training program 3 times per week, playing our game during 6 weeks. So we hope then we're going to complete 18 sessions with this. And the games, as they are, they can create a data log. So they are doing
sweet.
Data logging process. So we will be able to recreate a lot of the micro interactions that were happening when people were just there. For instance, if they were following another dolphin, if they were there at some point, there's some birds landing to the boat. So we will be able to see if they were actually paying attention to the birds, which can give us, and that's a hypothesis. That's something that we are really keen to explore. If all of these metrics can give us somehow a sense of the progression of the cognitive abilities, or all the cognitive, the very special cognitive abilities they have. If all of these micro interactions can give us, through machine learning models, they can give us some sense of how they are progressing, or how the entire dementia is progressing across them. And I think that's something that is super exciting from from a research point of view. So how is that a game at some point can be used to track the progression of specific cognitive disabilities or physical disabilities, as well as we are the women, they have sensors like the inertial motor units, like the accelerometers and those things. And we can also track them to see during this entire period of 6-7 weeks initially, what was the difference and how they were changing when they were getting more and more familiar with the games.
I think you are a shining example for any listener out there of what it means to carve your own research path, because not even just through your postdoc, but even throughout your entire journey that you were explaining before, you've kind of seen the potential and you went for it. So when you got here, you noticed that with these populations, you need kind of a longer perspective on your team. So then you went to the industry partner, found it yourself, brought them over. And it's funny because you talk about these brainstorming sessions. I think you are probably the only GI member that we have currently who, beginning to end of these events, you just run it all yourself. Because there would be some days where we would walk in, we knew that you would book the space, but we thought you were booking the space for just a meeting, and then we'd show up and there's this huge brainstorming session happening with physical therapists and these industry partners from Toronto and your entire research lab, and we go, whoa, this is really cool. So then I'd cancel all my meetings for the day and sit in and watch.
I remember, you were helping us out also in recording and documenting all the sessions. We're having some toys that we were using as physical objects for them to help us out with that. Yeah.
That was so cool. But it is truly remarkable because a lot of people sort of treat their research as if it's supposed to follow some type of template like people have set up before them. But here you are seeing that you have this end goal, this sort of amorphous end goal even, like you just want to be able to bring this technology to that population. And every step of the way, you're sort of making moves that help you get there. So even now that it's developed, you're thinking about, okay, what else can we research now that it's implemented? And I just think it's wonderful, and it's very much at the core of what I think Games Institute research tries to be and is. Yeah, it's great.
And I do believe that's why I like that space and the environment that I have there, because it's very hard to kind of have the same vibe. If I try to run this in a regular room or something like that, it would be like, I don't know, the ideas will not probably come as simple as they were coming at that day. But that day they were even like, the company, and they were like, they just wanted to stay for a little bit longer, probably to play some of the board games that we have there, just to play some of the other games that we have already set up. So I think that vibe of the space was, I don't know, I even have like offices in the other laboratories of robotics and where I work, but I always was staying at the GI.
That always happens when we have on these podcasts. I was like, oh, I miss that space. Because there is something kind of magical and like the creativity that is unlocked in that space is so unique.
And that was something that I was certainly taking a lot of advantage of. I was also running some board games nights, and I remember that I had to even like ask for permission and the keys and the double lock concept of the door and everything. And after that I learned that, everything was super good, and I always was bringing people to play games at night. That was a super relaxing moment to me throughout the week, like to compensate a little bit of the hard work we normally do with all the research projects.
Wow. Let's you mentioned the other lab that you're a part of, and I wanted to talk about that too, because you've got some really cool stuff happening there, and I still haven't been able to go see it in person. But last time we talked, which would have been a year and a half ago, last time we talked about this, in COVID years, what's that, 5 years ago? You mentioned that you have this robot who is helping to facilitate interactions between people from different generations. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's when I arrived, I was not really, nobody told me like, there would be this possibility of working in the field of social robotics, and I didn't have like any experience on it. But when I arrived, and then, that was also part of the why we were running this, what do you call the Brown talks at the GI? Because there were like some other professors that were like, here and there were probably interested on having, running similar research. One of them was Professor Christine Dottenham, and she is a Canada Research Chair in Social Robotics. She was just assembling. I was so lucky that she was just assembling the lab at the moment that I arrived. So she got all of this Canada Research Chair grant, which is certainly generous. And I think she was interested on working a little bit closer with designers, people that can design experiences, and especially game experiences when developing or working with social robots. So social robots, from in difference to kind of like regular mechanical robots, the main point with the social agents is they can have social interaction, they can have social capabilities. So they will be able to establish certain conversations, they will be able to sense social cues, or to kind of like have a regular interactions with human beings. That the technology, unfortunately, is not that advanced, but the field is also very emerging. So I think, when I arrived, she was interested in me also working together in one project that they had, in which they have a robot that is called Pepper. Pepper is a child-sized robot. It has certain capabilities. It's used a lot for images. If you Google AI, then Pepper will be somewhere there. So it's a white child-sized robot with a big tablet, and is like a little bit mobile.
I think that Pepper was on the cover of the Waterloo magazine, or featured on the website somewhere.
You see, yeah. Here we are. So that robot was there. There's one student that was running this project in which we were trying to see, okay, what is the role that a robot can play when it comes to mediate interactions between grandparents and grandchildren. So what a robot can do there? At the very beginning, there's not a lot of things that you probably believe a robot, a couple of roles that a robot can play. But the best way that I think I found out that the robot can mediate this interaction is with games. So I don't think there's something more natural, engaging, interactive that a robot can do with this, specific pair of people than helping them to play a game together. They can, even mediate has a tutor, mediate has many different ways. So I started the design process. I never did a game for a robot before, so it was also a super nice challenge. And I started just working with the student on that. We ended up using a game that is called Tangram, in which you have pieces of different shapes, and then you basically have to organize it and create a shape in which you just have the shadow. So you only have the template. So you accommodate them physically. So we used that game, and we created an initial experience which also has like a lot of storytelling, in which the robot is telling the story while proposing challenges for people to accommodate these shapes on the table. So we run an initial experiment just pre-COVID, and we were just asking participants. They were coming couples, 6 couples of parents, grandchildren, were coming to the lab, and they were just envisioning how the robot would be able to, participate or mediate the interaction. So they were playing the game without the robot, and then we introduced the robot, and we asked them, okay, how did you imagine Pepper would be able to help you? At the end, we noticed that they were excited about the possibility of this robot to help them when they were stuck. When they didn't know how to accommodate the pieces, the robot probably would be able to do it. Also, they were happy to, allow the robot to provide more challenges for them when they were playing. By, through that process, and after reviewing the literature, I also noticed that there was not any game taxonomy that you would be able to use when it comes to design games or robots. So I say, okay, what if, taking advantage that I'm working with a world leader in the field of social robotics, and I have some knowledge in game design, what if we create a taxonomy? So what we have been doing in 1 year, I can kind of briefly share with you here more or less how it looks like. But what we have been doing is basically creating a taxonomy that applies for any type of experience, interactive experience that you can create with robots as mediators and games. So we have 2 different segments. One is about, okay, the robot. What are the characteristics of the robot? And then we got the role of the robot. So robots can be like moderators. Robots can perform or execute. Robots can, bystand somebody when they're playing. Robots can train, tutor, or be a teacher. Then we notice the appearance. How is the appearance affecting the gameplay experience? So we notice the robots can be functional, mechanoids, humanoids, and anthropomorphic. And all of these aspects of the appearance, the shapes of the robots can actually shape and modify your experience. Also the motor abilities. So is the robot capable of, moving in place or moving in space? And the second category is mostly about game aspects. So which are the characteristics that the game should have to complement or to be merged with the robot's capabilities? So I'm an enthusiastic of studying game mechanics. I'm always looking for game mechanics for the games that I'm playing. So I managed to extract, so I did basically a systematic review of different games, in this case, multiplayer games that have been using at least one social robot and at least 2 people playing the game. So I structured the main game mechanics that the researchers in the field of human-robot interaction have been using for their experiments. So they got like game mechanics, they use a lot of the imitation games. So the robot is doing something, and then they ask, for instance, children with autism to reflect that. And that's supposed to be good for motor learning, which is something that is really important for this population. Guessing, the robot is kind of like providing specific things, and the participant, they have to guess. Also, we got cooperative, collaborative, teleoperation games, and games that require reaction time. we also noticed that the researchers were doing, these applications, research in different application areas like entertainment, educational, training, and assistance. That's the second category. And we got also, things that are related to both the robot and the game, which are the sensing capabilities. So what the robot can sense, that can give you a good sense of how the game is going, facial expressions, speech, gaze, tracking, proximity, and also the feedback modalities, what the robot plus the game can do to give feedback to the user, like haptics, speech, screen-based,
Wow.
and tactile, and things like that. So we created this, and the taxonomy will be published there's a transactions in human-robot interaction in ACM. And I don't know, that's been one of the most surprising pieces of research that I was not expecting when I arrived here. But now I'm, kind of like creating this taxonomy. We call it Roboludens, similar to the Homo ludens.
I like that.
Yeah. So, and we're going to have a workshop on a conference in human-robot interaction about this. And
awesome.
It's super exciting of having that and being able to kind of like find my niche on the human-robot interaction that I didn't even know when I arrived.
Very cool. Okay, here's the question that I think needs to be addressed. You have 2 major research threads going on. How do you balance them? Like, how do you find time to do both?
I will show you the how. These are the ones. The drums, most of the times, are the ones like when I kind of like need to release a little bit of, energy or things like that. The drums are normally helping me out, and I've been getting more and more, and now have like a decent amount of drums at home. I like to practice, and I think that helps me out into, the navigation of, sometimes can be stressful, reviewing. I was reviewing 3,000 papers to be able to get a systematic review. Normally you need to start getting big, and then you go, and at the end we're like 16 papers, the ones that were, that I used came out with the taxonomy. But you have to start with that 3,000 amount to be able to narrow it down to the scope. So I think that has been probably one of the most interesting things that I've been, doing, and the way for me to release the stress. And I always find good Latin American people that like and love also playing Latin American music. So I've created my own band as well, salsa band. And in summertime, we are going to do rehearsals at the Guadalupe Park. So I found in the diversity of the city, not only, I didn't only find that at the university, but also outside the universities, a lot of Latin American community also in Kitchener, and they are always super happy to have some band playing the regular music we normally like to play and dance. So that also has been super, super nice.
I look forward to watching one of those shows in the future. I'm looking at the time here. We're coming up to the end of our hour, so we have to make sure we get to the other body of questions, which have to do with what games you're playing right now. So I don't know if you have time to find, I don't know if you find time to play games in between the 2 research projects and your band, but we always need to know.
I think it's a must. So if you are a game designer, the best way to kind of like reinforce a lot of the and to refresh your brain is always, playing games. In my case, I think I have 2 streams for that. One is, I have my set of board games here with me. And lastly, I have been playing this. By the other day, I was checking for games with the theme of piracy. So I got the classic Port Royale. So pretty nice. And I also like the theme of dragons. So
I don't know if I've played either of these games. Yeah. Dragon's Horde.
Dragon Horde. It's super good. Dragons kind of like grabbing ships and then exchanging there from treasures. So super silly stuff, but super nice game mechanics.
I have to try that. That sounds good.
Yeah, I'm currently playing those board games, and In VR, lastly, I have been playing some games that you can sideload using the sideload application. There's super nice titles there. There's one that is kind of like a 3D Tetris and uses the hand tracking. And then you
cool.
can just accommodate pieces, and then more and more challenges are coming with the pieces. So the pieces are not coming down, but are spread out in the virtual environment. So you kind of like need to go 3D and accommodate that into it.
That sounds stressful.
I'm assuming this will help me in my spatial navigation skills, but I still need to prove that. So that'd be fun.
I get it stressed enough with Tetris on a screen, and you have to worry about the pieces. I don't.
They have removed the time aspect in this one, so you have, if you want, all the night to try to solve those pieces. So I enjoy kind of like going around the challenge and try to accommodate the pieces of different colors. So
very cool.
These are the things that I'm playing right now.
You should check out Beat Saber and see if there's any Latin American music that you can.
There's tons of mods and stuff for that game, so you'd have lots of homebrew content to play through.
Maybe you can upload some of your band stuff.
You never know.
All right, and then the capstone question is, if you could have everyone in the world play one game, what would it be?
Well, I have been also trying to be creative into getting connected to my family members. Some of them are in Colombia and some of them are in Panama. But I especially have my nephew and my niece back in Panama, and they are like 7 and 8 years old. So what I try to do with them is to play some of the very popular games that we found, and I always find this one super fun and very creative, Dixit.
Interesting.
So, and online, I just show them the cards, and I ask them that if you will describe this card, what would you use? Which words would you use to describe? And I can just laugh so loud every time that they are coming with any way of describing in the most silly way the cards that are coming in the decks of this. So I think everyone should at some point play this type of games. It's just a lot of imagination going on. So you find the cards, and the cards, they have a really good drawing.
Oh, wow.
And very descriptive, and kids are kids, so they just tell you the truth. They don't have the bias of you or the bias that we have. So they just describe it in the best way that they see it. And it'll be one of the best ways that I found to get to know my new family members, the kids that I have in my family. They cannot be with them, but if I can share 15 minutes every 2 days with them playing the game, I have the feeling that I already know them. I already know their preferences and their likes and the way that they think just by playing these simple games. So that would be my game, Dixit.
That's awesome. That's really sweet. We could try that once I start speaking. Tobin's son Cyrus has been growing up during COVID, so he's going to be he's going to be all about human interaction soon enough.
He hasn't had me for 2 years, basically.
It's going to be an explosion. That's what I read the other day. It's going to be an explosion of social interaction. Everyone is like go and demonstrate whatever we haven't been able to demonstrate during this day.
I think it's going to be just like this celebration for a few years, people just being so happy to be out of this. And we're going to be listening to your band in the park, we're going to be playing these games, we're going to be back in the GI space soon enough. And but this for now, this has been great. Doing this podcast with you virtually has been great.
I can imagine that, how you would be being able to reach a lot of different researchers, and I think I was super happy to share some of the projects and things that I have been doing here in Waterloo, and looking forward also to some of the new challenges. You never know what else is going to come, because we got to the point that there were not ways to organize games and robots. I probably at some point I will find out that there's another thing that really it's really missing something that I believe is important because of the economy. I mean, what would be the game, in general, the game spectrum in general, without taxonomies to kind of like organize. That allows to categorize, to organize things in a better way. So maybe, yeah, there's something else waiting there for me that I haven't discovered.
And I think with that great note, it's time to say goodbye.
Okay.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me and for the very pleasant conversation.